Emotional depth isn't weakness. It's the strength most people run from. Most people walk through life wearing emotional armor, acting unfazed, unbothered, untouched. They've been taught that feeling deeply makes them fragile, that vulnerability is some kind of liability, and that real strength comes from not caring. But here's the twist. The people who fear emotional depth the most are usually the ones controlled by their own suppressed emotions. And the few who embrace emotional depth, they move through life with a kind of grounded confidence that can't be faked. What if the thing you've been taught to hide is actually your most powerful asset? What if emotional depth isn't the weakness society paints it to be, but the rare strength most people will never develop? Today, we're going to break down why emotional depth is a superpower, how it separates you from the crowd, and why stepping into it can completely shift the way people see you and the way you see yourself. 1. Emotional depth builds unshakable self-awareness. Most people don't realize how powerful self-awareness is because they've never actually had it. They react to life instead of responding to it. They get triggered, overwhelmed, or defensive without any idea why. But emotional depth forces you to look inward, to understand your patterns, your wounds, and your motives. And that level of inner clarity turns into real-world strength. Someone who's self-aware doesn't project their issues onto others. They don't explode when things get stressful. They don't take everything personally. And they don't let emotions take the wheel and drive them off a cliff. Instead, they understand what's happening inside them as it happens. That's power, because the moment you can name your emotions, you can manage them, rather than letting them manage you. Emotional depth makes you harder to manipulate, harder to trigger, harder to knock off balance. And in a world full of distracted, reactive people, emotional awareness instantly sets you apart. 2. Emotional depth strengthens relationships, not just romantic ones, but every interaction you have. People think emotional depth is only about being sensitive or dramatic, but in reality, it's what creates real connection. You can't build trust without depth. You can't build loyalty without depth. And you definitely can't build meaningful relationships if you're emotionally unavailable. Deep people listen with presence, they communicate clearly, they understand nuance, they make others feel seen, heard, and understood. That's why emotionally deep people often become the anchors in their relationships. Friends confide in them, partners trust them, colleagues respect them, because people gravitate toward those who can provide emotional stability, something incredibly rare today. Surface-level people might be fun for a night out, but depth is what makes someone unforgettable. When you're comfortable with your own emotions, you create space for others to be comfortable with theirs. You elevate conversations, you build trust effortlessly, and you become the kind of person people value more and more over time, not someone who's easily replaceable. 3. Emotional depth fuels resilience. Real resilience, not fake toughness. There's a huge difference between shutting down your emotions and mastering them. One is avoidance. The other is resilience. Avoidance looks strong on the surface, but collapses under pressure. Resilience looks calm on the surface because it has roots beneath it. When you have emotional depth, you don't shy away from discomfort. You walk through it. You learn from pain instead of running from it. You face the parts of yourself that others spend their whole lives ignoring. That's what builds inner strength. You become the kind of person who can handle conflict without falling apart, who can endure heartbreak without losing themselves, and who can take responsibility for their emotions instead of blaming the world. Resilience doesn't come from pretending you're okay. Resilience comes from understanding why you're not okay and building the tools to move through it. Emotionally deep people bounce back faster with more wisdom because they don't waste energy resisting their own reality. They adapt, they process, they grow. And that's what makes them unstoppable. 4. Emotional depth enhances leadership and influence. Most people assume leadership is about authority, confidence, or charisma, but emotional depth is what gives those qualities real impact. A leader without emotional depth is unpredictable, rigid, or disconnected. A leader with depth is aware, empathetic, adaptable, and far more effective. Emotional depth helps you read a room. It helps you understand what people need, what they fear, and what motivates them. It helps you communicate in a way that actually lands. And the truth is, people follow those who make them feel understood, not those who simply demand obedience. Even in business, emotional intelligence consistently ranks higher than IQ in predicting long-term success. Emotional depth gives you the ability to navigate conflict, inspire loyalty, and build teams that thrive instead of crumble. Today's world doesn't need more loud leaders. It needs leaders who have the courage to feel deeply, act wisely, and stay grounded when everyone else is losing themselves. 5. Emotional depth unlocks fulfillment, purpose, and a richer experience of life. Life is not meant to be lived on mute, but most people stay emotionally shallow because it's safer, easier, and more predictable. Emotional depth requires you to feel everything, the good, the bad, the confusing, the overwhelming. But that's exactly what makes life meaningful. People who shut down their emotions also shut down joy, passion, and purpose. They might avoid pain, but they also avoid intensity, clarity, and connection. When you embrace emotional depth, you appreciate beauty more intensely, you love more fully, you connect more authentically, you experience life with a richness that others don't even realize they're missing. Emotional depth opens doors to purpose because you're not running from yourself. You're paying attention, you're living consciously, you're aligned with your values, and you're not afraid to chase what genuinely matters. Shallow living might feel comfortable, but deep living feels alive. If you're tired of being told that feeling deeply is a flaw, it's time to rewrite that narrative. Emotional depth is not weakness. It's the foundation of confidence, clarity, resilience, and connection. And the world needs more people who are willing to feel, not fewer. So here's your next step. Start embracing the parts of yourself you've been taught to hide. Pay attention to what you feel. Speak your truth. Let yourself care, fully, honestly, courageously. Because emotional depth isn't something to escape. It's something to grow into. And once you do, you'll never want to go back to living on the surface.